Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this July Curiosita, as we hopefully have for those of you who don't love winter, have our last month of winter. And when I see you again joining, then hopefully it will be already springtime, which is my favorite time of the year. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Marla Coonan. I'm the Executive Dean for Strategy and Stakeholder Management here at the Da Vinci Institute. So today I decided, I was telling Letta and Javier that I decided to go a bit African with my look. So for those of you that don't recognize me, it is because I've always got curly hair down and now I decided to pull it up. But for those of you who know me, there's many of you that I do know online, but many of you that I don't. So on behalf of the Da Vinci Institute, I want to welcome you. I hope you will see behind me our new logo that we are showing. We've been using our new logo for a while now and for this year, but we're starting to stretch it across things. And the reason for that is because of our feedback from many of our students and our alumni that they want to be, thank you, Zito, that they want to be in terms of the business school side of things. So if you look at our general logo of Da Vinci, we've now done something that we love, which is Da Vinci Business School, and you'll see our logo has underneath it the co-creating realities, which for us is a really important thing. And for those of you that missed the Institute because you haven't been for a long time, here are some pictures to remind you of what the place looks like. It is still very much your home of remarkability, and we hope that all of those that have joined us know that our doors are open 24/7, and they're open 24/7 for a reason, and I mean that honestly. You can even go there on a Sunday. You are more than welcome. I joke with Prof. Ben, and I say to him, Prof. Anderson, I'm coming to get some rock roses, and he says, with pleasure. So if you have a function or anything and you need a rock rose, perhaps you'll pop by. But most importantly, guys, it is your home of remarkability, your academic home. For those of you that are current students, those of you that are alumni, those of you that are Da Vinci stakeholders, please do join us anytime that you want to stop by at the campus and you're in the area. But our entire business is now online, which for us has been quite incredible, considering the discussions around TIPS managerial leadership framework throughout time and looking at things like the management of technology, innovation, and people in a really systemic sort of way. So today, both of our speakers, one being our guest speaker and our other one being our doctoral candidate who's going to be presenting, certainly sits in terms of many aspects of the TIPS managerial leadership framework. But the aspect I wanted to speak to you a little bit about is just very briefly is around this I and the P at the bottom. So for those of you who've forgotten or those of you that don't know, if you look over here, we say that those people that can manage innovation really well and can manage people really well will be able to be truly engaged people or managerial leaders. That's why engagement as agile, aligned, and engaged sits between the I and the P of TIPS. Now, those competencies here and those practices that sit there speak about things such as facilitating conversation, engaging creative networks as your two competencies. And for me, and that's just briefly what I wanted to say, I hope that that is what all of you that join Curiosita indeed find. That as we sit here with the I and as we sit here with the P, that you find the topics to be innovative, you find our doctoral students to really be pushing innovation, but that you also see it as a place of cooperative engagement of people. You are all sitting in the audience to help our doctoral candidates who present, and you are here to be engaged and facilitate conversation with both our doctoral candidates and our industry experts who give of their time to be here. So I decided to do a little bit of a different introduction today for that, because I really want to try to show the relevance of TIPS in all that we do at Da Vinci. And the one thing that I plan to do very shortly is this outside, people often don't realize that it's actually a wheel that moves around. So there are times in all the quadrants where we need to be coordinated, cooperative, and collaborative as leaders. And obviously cooperations where we want to sit for the most part. And certainly today, this would be moving around to be more cooperative. But for example, the fact that your mics are muted, etc., is certainly coordinated, but an important part of what we need to share as managerial leaders out there. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker. And I have to say that I'm very excited to hear you speaking, Albert, because as the head of business development at Andile Solutions, I know that you have been in business development and a business developer and one of the co-founders of Andile. But for me, it's about the fact that I know you started as a financial engineer, and I'm not sure that I exactly understand financial engineering, but my limited knowledge, I think it's something to do with mathematics techniques to also solve financial problems. And as somebody who's a little bit scared at time of numbers, even though I did stats to honors, I am indeed fascinated by this field. But I think for me, it is the fact that you really do focus extensively around, and you're going to be speaking to us today about expanding in new territories. And I think for me, this is really critical because your dualistic passion to expand new territories and opportunities for your own clients in the financial market, with your experience in investment banking, trading technologies, etc., certainly speaks to, in the TIPS managerial leadership framework, someone who's able to manage technology and innovation. And for us, when someone can manage technology and innovation, those people really know how to probe problems, get a deep and meaningful understanding, but they have a key sense of agility as managerial leaders, which I think we can all understand and appreciate that in a disruptive environment, it is critical for us to be agile. But I think one of the things many of us lack that come more from the certain areas of study and philosophical aspects is to operationalize ideation. And I think for me, this is a really important practice that falls into this ambit of the managerial leadership framework, because ideas and innovations are incredible, but if they cannot be actualized and operationalized, we've been discussing so much at the moment in the youth sector around entrepreneurship, for example, and how there are so many incredible youth with brilliant ideas, but unfortunately, they are not able to commercialize or operationalize what they're doing. So I think for many of us, we want to expand, and people in Curiosita, we often speak about the Pan-African agenda, expansion, and many of us do not know how to get ourselves into that new territory. So I would like you to commend you for being an agile managerial leader in the Da Vinci space, someone who certainly manages technology and innovation. And today you get to meet the people and engage with the people. So I say, for being the T, the I, and the P, and the S, thank you very much for joining us, for lending us your expertise. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Albert Janse van Vuuren.
Thanks, Marla. I feel like one of those kids who who got a prize for a competition I didn't enter. You gave me so many compliments there. I'm like, well, I didn't even know I'm an agile manager and all of that. So, but yeah, thanks for the introduction, Marla. So everyone, my name is Albert Janse van Vuuren. As Marla said, I head up business development within Andile. I will come back. There's a couple of points you made there, Marla, that stands out to me, because that is business development. Sometimes people think that business development, you're within sales, and that is one of the aspects of business development. But you summarize it quite well, where business development is having a first principle understanding of a subject matter. In our case, it is capital markets, technology, and trading. Then being able to understand the problem from a client's perspective, knowing what you have to offer and what the problem statement of the client is. How do you group that together in a solution and actually package it and then communicate it out to the market? That in its entirety is business development, and that is what I do. So I am privileged to coming from a background of financial engineering and working on Andile and been in a company from the ground up, and I'll be talking around it a bit more, but I'll share my screen. This is not going to be a theoretical discussion at all today. I'm going to take you through the Andile expansion story, and I've titled it "Lessons Learned on Our Pioneering Journey." When we started out Andile, so there were 5 of us who started out Andile in 2008 in the middle of the global financial crisis. And we were like, back then, my boss Andres came to us and said, "Let's start a company." I was 22 at that time. We were like, let's go for it. What can go wrong? But we started out this journey with a pioneering spirit inside of us. When the first time we came together and we spoke about what is our why, what is it that drives us, what is our passion, we came up with the title to say we are conservative pirates, in the sense of wanting to go out and longing for the vast openness. But we did think it was a bit. It's not a message you can portray into the market. And we came up with this phrase, trusted adventurers, being trusted in a market, being known, being able and competent, but having always this adventuring spirit on us. And we started to pioneer and grow the business over time. So today, but as a pioneer, we've learned a lot of lessons along the way. So what I'm going to do today is just to take you through that journey. And I will be talking around just building the base, what it means to build a base that is sound. And that talks when I said we were trusted adventures, building up that trust. Moving on to the power of partnership, what that meant for us, how we've been able to grow through partnership into different territories. But then as you start growing, then to make sure that you keep the home fires burning, positioning yourself for cross-sell and upsell, maybe 3 terms that I will be using where I'm using a bit of sales talk, if it may be, or business development, is going to be the terms new sell, where you sell something new to a customer, cross-sell, where you are selling to an existing client, you are then selling a different type of offering, and upsell, where you are an existing offering, selling more to them. And how do you position for that? Local knowledge is key, with lessons we've learned around that and what we didn't, and what it took us to learn that. And then as you start growing, what it means to have your business operating model and your go-to-market alignment. And then lastly, I will just share with you where we're at moment as a company and how we are applying all these lessons. So this is by no means going to be a theoretical discussion. At the end, you are welcome to throw me with questions. You can even come and say, well, if you knew about this and this and this module within our course, you would not have made these mistakes. I am open for you to share that with me at all. But if I start with building the base, and I just want to position Andile to you, because it's as I go through a story, just so that you understand where do I come from, what it is that we do. So we are a professional and managed services company. Our product that we sell are services around professional, which are people, skills, knowledge into the very niche market of capital markets, treasury and trading and banking world. And then managed services, where that is cloud hosted managed services, or it is not cloud necessarily. So if I talk around services, in our case, it will be professional managed service, but you can apply the same thinking if it was that you are out or you're exporting products, or you're selling IT, or any other type of services within a market. So that is what our company does. We are, like I say, we started in 2008 out of Johannesburg. We were 5 guys who started. The company at the moment is around just shy of about 80 or so people. And over the years, we've grown within South Africa. So we service all the major bank and a couple of the challenger, or let's call it more of the local banks within South Africa. We've expanded into the EU and UK, where we now have offices. And we've also done work in Australia and India. We have grown out of Africa. So we are operational in 11 countries, and I'll be talking around that journey for you. So when I come to you and I say we just want to share you some lessons of what we've learned over our pioneering days, this is where we're currently sitting as an organization, and what I want to just share with you around that. So just around building the base. When we started this company in 2008, we were 5 guys who started 1 client. We started with a 3-month contract. And without knowing it, we were just from day one building trust. We were, whatever was thrown to us as an organization, we would hit it out of the park, and we would make sure that we build a reputation. I think all of us thought the company would grow quicker and faster. And maybe because of the global financial crisis, it didn't. And it was a good thing. It was a blessing. What it meant was we serviced the one client well. We entrenched ourselves there, but we built up trust. And by word of mouth, that spread into the market. So if I tell you we started in 2008, it's not until 2012 that we got our second client. What I want to share with you there, big lessons learned, is don't despise small beginnings. Today, you could have probably called us a startup in 2008. The phrase wasn't there. Maybe it's a good thing it wasn't there because you don't have that pressure. But as a startup, don't despise small beginnings, and don't, if you're not seeing the growth, you're not seeing that second or third client within the first 4 years, don't worry. Make sure that you build trust, because that is what's going to matter at the end, and that trust takes time to build, and that's what we did. Up until 2012, it was just building the base, making sure that we got everything in place, and then in 2012 is where we then entered into our first partnership. That was with a software vendor. At that time, we've been able to save a bit of capital, and we were able to start investing into the company. Up until that point, it was not investing into the company. So we communicated to the market permanence in the form of getting offices within South Africa. So by that point, it wasn't just a company that was a consulting company or as a lifestyle company, but it was a company with intentions of growing. And we invested by sending people over to San Francisco for 2 or 3 months training. We were about 12 people at that time in a company. So to send 4 people with an organization, with their families, for 2 months to San Francisco without them being able to be billable just for training was a massive investment as a company. What that did was 2 things. It again communicated to the market that we are serious, but it communicated to our partner as well that we are serious and willing to invest. And from there on, doors started opening with our partner. We got the South African Reserve Bank, which was our biggest implementation to date as well with this partner. And they started opening up for us doors into Africa. The partner had a mature sales department and sales network or channels into different jurisdictions. So by partnering or by attaching ourselves to this partner, we were able to, I would say, leapfrog the sales process of using their channels to get into different countries. So the power of partnership, if you going into different territories or new territories, is massive. Where the partner is already known, where they already have networks, where they already have sales channels. We after that were able to get a project in Mauritius, then getting a project in Zambia, getting a project in Kenya, and also getting a project in Ghana. So it was definitely that exponential growth that started to happen while we were still growing our clients within South Africa as well. So within South Africa, we were able to see more clients and grow our client base. So the power of partnership, I cannot emphasize it enough, is critical. But partnership, I think for what we realized as a company is true partnership is being willing to invest and not just willing to go along for the ride with them. But as we then started growing, we had more clients. We were then operational in about 5 or 6 countries across Africa. This is now around, I would say, 2016. So we're 8 years old as a company. It does start testing your operations as a company. Niels Claessens, who's our COO, has joined us back then, and he was brought in just to then stabilize the house, to make sure that we put the right infrastructure, the people operation processes, the legal processes, everything in place to start managing this growth. And at that same time, word got out into the market that Andile's got an African strategy or an international globalization strategy in play. The theme at that point, I still remember when our MD back then, Andries Brink, at a team meeting or management meeting, and he spoke just around "Keep the Home Fires Burning." It's a song from First World War that was at the home front, where yes, you are longing, yes, your heart's with the boys fighting the battle in the trenches in France, but make sure you keep the home fires going. Make sure you continue with your everyday life. The challenge we saw with that was internally from a people perspective. It can always be seen that the employees working on the international projects, or the people going into the unknown or into the pioneering says that's where you want to be. But that's not the case. You still have to keep the home fires going. If you look at it from a business development point of view, 70 to 80% of your revenue still come from your existing client base. Going into new territories or expanding into new territories is a future view, a view for growth into the future. And sometimes it takes long to see that revenue coming into play. So it's to then make sure that you keep the home fires going. And we had to communicate that to our clients as well. I still remember a conversation. So because we started as a South African entity, people partnered with us, or banks partnered with us, because they knew that we are investing in a local market. So, and as soon as we started looking into different countries, the question was, well, will we still have your focus? Will we still be receiving the service from you, which we were hoping for, that we grew accustomed to, or that we love from you? And that was then a message into the market as well, that no, we are still keeping the fires going in South Africa. We're making sure that we can service you as a client. What we also did at that same point was to bring account management and customer success customer success management into the practice, to make sure that we manage our existing clients well when we are going out and pioneering, that our existing accounts and existing clients and banks are looked after. So that was the lessons just around keeping the home fires going. But then as we started growing into these different territories, and all these banks that we were new clients, and I referred earlier to the phrase of new sell. So that's where we were able to get the new banks, and then it's exhilarating to get new banks into new territories. So you've got banks across all the different territories, but it is a different thing, completely different story than if you have a client to cross-sell and upsell if you are going after these different territories. So we quickly learned that we had to position ourselves within those markets to make sure that we look after these new clients to be able to cross-sell and upsell. The biggest lesson that we learned there was we got our first client in the UK. I still remember it was February 2020, just before COVID, where we flew out of London, had our first client, and the engagement would have worked that we would be an offshore team that would service them, and we would continuously come over to the UK to be able to service them. Of course, a month later, COVID struck. All borders, all flights, all planes closed, and we were not able to then go visit that client as regularly. And then it was a very difficult task to actually keep that client. And that project went on for just over a year. And after that, we've not been able to renew that contract. We've not been able to cross-sell and upsell because we were not positioned in that place to have people on the ground close to them to help with that cross-sell, upsell. So I'll later on come back and how we've now learned from that lesson and what we actually are doing to make sure that to get the first client is great, but how do you then continue and make sure that you make sure you can cross-sell and upsell and service the clients well.
So Peter's asked, what was the process of agreeing to some of your growth strategies between the founders? Was it an organic journey or was it more of a purposeful journey?
Initially, it was organic. We've always had the discussion from a technology perspective. We need to look at the S-curve where you've got that different adoptions phase of technology. And then it starts growing, but there will then at the end, there would be a phase where people get off technology. And because we're so linked to technology, we always knew we had to make sure that we partner with technology that is giving us those new S-curves. That was, I would say, the strategic thinking behind it. When we got a new partner in 2012, we were moving from one technology into a new one. But as soon as we then had that the agreement to go with the new partner, it was quite organic and working together with them. Where at this point in our maturity, it is very strategic and very intentional. I think we've grown out of the being just organic and whatever comes we will take, where now we are very, I would say the past 3 years, very intentional in how do we think strategically, which territories can we service well, in terms of South Africa, what do we do here? In terms of Africa, how do we position ourselves? And starting some offices in East Africa to do that. And then in the EU, UK, also having offices there. So it's very much strategic now, at where I would say there was a phase where it wasn't that strategic and was more organic. Peter, does that answer your question?
Yeah. The reason why the question came through was that we see quite a lot of organizations, particularly when they're planning to go and provide some sort of service. There's some time or energy spent wanting to plan, towards either entering a market or following some sort of strategy within that. So the question really was around, if you had to give some sort of an advice to particularly, not necessarily SMMEs, but any organization that wants to grow, which part, if it had to be a percentage, would you say that first of all, as you enter the market, you should allow that organic growth, or should you actually sit down and plan that? Because there's a lot of theory that says, as you open a business, you know that people work on strategy, they work on all of those stuff, and then you find executives, stuck in boardrooms, really wanting to do this rather than allowing the organization to grow, purposefully and organically. And I mean, you did share that, it takes a bit of a while, to get your footing, like what you said. And if you look across all boards, people don't become successful overnight, but there's still that, confusion to say, can you, should you follow a certain route? Should you plan, or should you really allow the organization to find its footing and actually grow from there?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And going into new territories, you should plan. I think from a where we've been able to see projects and needs within banks, yes, we've gone after that because that's a confirmed opportunity. We're not going to say no to a confirmed opportunity in a new jurisdiction where we are within a time zone where we know operationally we can service you. But then if you want to actually go and establish yourself in that market and want to grow and build within that market, it definitely needs planning because the cost of investment is so high to do that. So you can't just go after all these markets, all the countries that we have got a footprint in. You can't say that you are established in all these markets, or you can't just say you're going to go and establish you. You've got to be strategic in deciding where do you then establish yourself, what are you going to invest, and that takes strategy and planning around that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And maybe last month without hogging the platform. And I think particularly when it comes from small organizations, it's easier for big entities. And I'm going to use examples of Vodacom and MTN, for example, when they go into Nigeria. You saw, MTN to a large extent, they were successful, but now you can actually see some of the, challenges that they're going through, where one time Vodacom actually failed to go into those markets, particularly from an African perspective. And I would appreciate that where we are going through as from a South African perspective, we want to grow up across our borders. How much of that, would require us to really sit down? Because unless you understand those markets in the area, then it'll give you that. But then do you not have enough information to plan, or do you just go drop in DRC and say, I'm just going to go and run with it like what the missionaries used to do in the olden age where they're successful? So it's a bit of a catch-22, situation. But thank you for the answer.
Before you answer, I want to say I think that's an exceptionally brilliant question, because I think a lot of us ask that question. We've had many discussions that getting into the Pan-African region, getting in across the board, is really difficult because of many elements. So looking forward to your response.
I still remember when there was a bank in Kenya we were working with there, we're sitting with them. I don't know if we had coffee or something at one point, and they were so proud. I can't remember the local brewery in Kenya, but they were so proud that brewery kicked out SAB. Back then it was still SAB out of the Kenyan market. So it was just that story of the South African brewery coming to establish them, this multinational entity, but they lost the market share to the local guys who were underground and who were serviced the market well. And I think that's aligned with that new sell, cross-sell, and upsell. if you new sell, you get the opportunity, but then you need to start, if you really want to establish yourself as a permanent player in a market, you need to invest, and you also need to partner with local knowledge. And that's my next point. Local knowledge, local partnership is key. As an example there, my father-in-law used to have a construction company in South Africa. So they did skylights and they also did roofing. They actually did, so as an example, they did the tent roofing in Menlyn with an American company. So that American company partnered with them on the installation. I'm not 200% sure, but before the 2010 World Cup, the World Cup before that, I'm not sure, the Soccer World Cup where that was, that company, that American company bidded, it was not in America, bidded for a couple of stadiums. I don't think they won one of the stadiums. Then when the 2010 Soccer World Cup came up, they learned and they said that we have to get a local representative. We have to get someone on the ground that can actually bid on their behalf, but be on the ground when they do the bidding. They, I think they got 3 stadiums. Definitely it was the PE Stadium, and it was also Mobela in Nelspruit. And that was the lesson, just around partnering with local knowledge on the ground who's known within the market and reputation. So Peter, to answer to your question, that getting a partner locally that understands the political climate, if you think of Kenya at the moment, which is going through elections in August, people who know, okay, well, if it's going through elections, then you should not waste your time in trying to sell. The people who knows the tribal aspects within Africa. It's something that in South Africa, I think we understand a bit within the socioeconomic, but not within business. That's something you have to understand in Africa. So having that partnership within local countries is key. And what we are doing there, for instance, is in Kenya at the moment, is we're working there with a local partner who's got an established presence, who knows the market, working with us as well. And then we're also doing the same in the UK. In the UK, we've got a local British director that is with us there. And it's fascinating. You would think in the UK, we think we are English and we've got a heritage with the UK. So you are accepted in meetings, and yes, you are accepted. But if you walk into a boardroom with a person with a British accent, it's like something, the atmosphere changes. There's a different type of discussion that continues and happens. And then you're like, the importance of local is key. So to bring that back to your point, Peter, is critical. And then the last one that we've learned, I think then I'll go into questions, because I think there's a lot of discussion to come out of this, is, and Marla, this brings me back to, from a business development point of view, is if you're going into new territories, you need to make sure that you have alignment between your business, your people operating model, if your business operating model, and actually what your go-to-market is. And I think that's where a lot of companies fail, where you go into a new market, you break it open, but you don't adjust your people and your business model to actually continuously serve you on what it is that your unique selling proposition is into that market. And that's something that that's where we've done a lot of planning. So what we've established going into new territories, one of the territories that we've gone into is to say that we know our lower South African cost base is a competitive advantage. So we are able to present more competitive pricing into that market, but it has to be an offshore model in how we're going to present to the client. As soon as we move resources into that territory, we lose it. So how do we then align our people process in terms of our hiring, in terms of our training, but then also in terms of our operating model, of how we deliver our services into that market so that we can do it on an offshore basis? Because if you don't do that, you just go sell and you ship over people. As an example, in our case, you use that competitive advantage and you will be out of that market within a short period of time. And that is it from the lessons learned. What I will just say, how we then applying this, Marla, into our where we are now. We've got two go-to-market strategies going on. We are positioning ourselves for growth. So we're looking at opening offices now in Kenya. Into the UK, we've got an office in the Netherlands, partnering, like I said, in Kenya with a local partner there that knows the East Africa territory, local partner in the UK. And we are partnering for sales channels. We've now, in the UK, EU, we're partnering with a direct sales company that will open up their network to us. We are aligning our people, project, and profits. Especially, we are doing in focusing on our people culture within our South African entity to be aligned with the growth that we are looking at. And that is a story. I hope as people can take something from it, and that's our lessons learned in a pioneering world.
Thank you so much, Albert.
I have two questions. I'll frame the first one. Have you seen, as you've gone into different territories, have you seen geographical differences in the different territories? For example, in Africa, for the kind of products that your different clients are wanting, and what sort of products are they asking for? For example, in deeply rural areas, they may be asking for banking for the unbanked or whatever. That's the one question. And the second question then leads from that to serve the markets. And when you upsell, etc., have you seen a need for different sets for your own people in your organization that are different today to what they were maybe 5 years ago? As they deal in new markets, new geographical spaces, and maybe after COVID anyway, a totally different world that we live in. Thank you very much.
Cool. I think from a technology perspective, what we're seeing within the African market, the banking for the unbanked, something that we're seeing in the African market that is a need, especially in a West African market, is being able to get fixed income products into the hand of your man on the street. That is something that is not in South Africa. In a country like Ghana, the most trusted product and the product that will give you the best yield of return is a government bond. So they want to give partial ownership to the man on the street for those bonds to be able to, and that's what the people want to invest in. They don't want to put their money in banks. They want to have that. So it's then being able to adjust your digital channels to actually get to that man on the street where they can get the bonds. Very interesting, and what we're also seeing in Africa is mobile money. So where banks want to be able to see is how do you tap into that mobile money aspect, where they can then use the mobile money, for instance, to start trading on the fixed income. So that is some of the trends that we are seeing. I think from a traditional treasury perspective, capital markets, treasury and trading, that's quite a market where it stays constant, but there is definitely from a digital channels point of view, some changes. Fascinating to hear what your next doctorate's going to talk about, leapfrogging through technology in Africa. I think that's a very relevant topic. And then from a skills perspective, where we've seen the most unique questions within different territories are regulatory based. So it's being able to what are the regulations that are required, or they've got different types. For, again, as an example, when you look at bonds, a different way of pricing their bonds, of quoting their yields, having that local knowledge, then we need people then to go and actually research that and then be able to apply it. Within our more mature markets, so I would say South Africa, EU, UK, we are seeing a lot more requests for cloud skills. Every bank's got a big cloud drive, cloud adoption of cloud technology, strategic objective, and there's a shortage of skills of actually making use of the tools on cloud. So a lot more drive, and that is something where we need to upskill people within the next couple of years. Hope it answers your question, Shirley.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Prof. Klopper?
Thank you, Marla. Albert, thank you. Ask my first question on the cloud skills. The second question, can you share any views with us on thinking about the new economies of scale?
Yeah, Prof, can I maybe ask you just a clarification question of how you view the new economies of scale?
Yes. Okay. So I was thinking about this. And this is my first question around the assets. How can mobilize that? But my view is with this breaking down of boundaries and, assets that become multinational, where you almost need to look at global. People tend to kind of in a part look from massification to customization. But I think economies of scale and the laws of economies of scale is changing. Yeah. I don't want to talk about technical scales or economic scales. I think simple principles like as you take a new product development forward, on your case, the mergers and acquisitions that you spoke about, are there any insights and lessons from your dealings that you want to share with the colleagues around the table, if that answers your question?
When we definitely, because we come from a background of professional services, if it's the traditional format of professional services, you've got no economies of scale. It's a one-to-one. You've got one person, one service. And then you start breaking it down as in a banking world. There's a terms as a service. I call the two A's and an S. The as service. So banking as a service, business analysis as a service, platform as a service. Everything is moving towards as a service. There you can achieve great economies of scale, and I think that's where we've seen that with software as a service and infrastructure as a service. Cloud in its way came from as an infrastructure as a service. So having that economies of scale of cloud is definitely going to be critical. Banks are slow to adopt, and we are definitely positioning ourselves that we can give everything as a service. So for instance, our service desk that we run into Africa is service desk or support as a service, where we've got 5 people servicing 10 banks across Africa. So we've been able to get at economies of scale. It has driven down the price to our clients, and now they've already immediately got access to skilled people they will not have at an affordable price. But I think that as a service is based on economies of scale. Banks are slow to adopt new types of working. But they will start aligning more and more to that type of business.
Thank you, Albert. Appreciate it. Thanks, Marla.
So, Alan, and then over to you, Zito.
You must be quite battle-hardened. I will speak about 3 aspects. One is about partnerships, what you've highlighted on, the myths of doing business, especially in Africa, and the template, that controversial template of South African companies doing business in Africa. In terms of partnerships, we know that it's always been emphasized that if you go to a new geography, a new area of doing business, link up with the local partner who knows the local terrain and so forth. However, we know quite bad stories about partnerships across the continent, and the fact that in most cases, even when you make it formal, it's not even worth the paper it's written on, because they are easily broken. Systems work differently. Now, in that regard, Albert, how do you manage this? What do you do to ensure that you are able to select a partner who actually brings value, but not necessarily a partner with whom you agree on a few things or have the same passions or hobbies or speak the same way, but a partner who actually is able to bring through levels of honesty and trust and value to your business? That's one question. The other one is, you've argued highlighted some of these companies. There are a lot of companies, particularly founded in our Republic of SA, that have gone on to open up operations in the rest of Africa. You mentioned them, South African breweries, and how they had that war with Kenya breweries and they couldn't match it. In my own country, Uganda, we've seen a very successful retailer, very successful in SA, ShopRite, to name it, closing shop and leaving. And others, including the mobile telecoms and banks, are finding it difficult to participate in the financial space in the face of mobile telephone companies providing financial services. And that's just one story to mention, South African Airways and so many others. Actually, the content is littered with graves of companies failing because of this template, which is Africa is rising, false myth. Africa is a green field, false myth. Africa is lacking everything, socks, shoes, t-shirts, another false myth. All Africans are eager to embrace anything else, false myth. The actual reality is that the African market is so complex and so difficult to penetrate.
Yeah.
And one has to have really a good a strategy that will be able to penetrate the people's minds and be able to provide them solutions to the problems that they actually face that we know around infrastructure or around access and so forth. So with faced with such a reality, as I have highlighted, Albert, what are you unlearning from your experience that is enabling you to build up a strategy to penetrate the continent? That's my second question.
Thanks, Alan. I think it's quite a long question. Albert?
Firstly, I would say, Alan, I love your country. We are working there with a bank at the moment with a project implementation. Our guys are flying out in about a week, and it's been one of their favorite projects over the past couple of years within Uganda. I think partnership. I'll go to your first question. How do we do there? We like to dance before we date with partners, if I can call it that. So not going into a equity sharing type of model from day one, starting out more with a sales agreement. And when we go to market together, trying to do as much as possible background checks with people that we know within the market. Of course, we do our proper due diligence from a legal point of view. But like you say, a partnership is there's a person on the other side of the agreement. You need to be able to have agreement on certain principles, but you should be able to let go some things that are not agreeable. So we have principles. Our culture is key in this organization. We've identified principles that is, if we go to a partner, that are non-negotiables, and things that are fine if we don't agree on them. And like I say, we then start with an agreement that's probably more sales-based channel before going into a full-blown equity partnership. So that is what we've done. Maybe in a year, you're going to invite me back and I'm going to have a graveyard story for you. So let's see where that goes. But that has been working for us so far. The operating model point of view, I think we business to business, which is different from business to consumer, to the man on the street. Yes, banks are different, and I would say organizations are different, but we are able to, what we communicate and how we work with banks, we do need to understand their way of doing it, but we don't have to always change to what that last mile, that from the bank to the client. That is the bank's responsibility, and we're partnering with them. So in a way, I think we're a bit guarded, but you are right. We cannot go over there in applying exactly the same thing we did in Africa into the solutions, because banking is a regulated institute business. We are seeing a lot of the same reputations within the banks and the business to business, and we're seeing that. So in the way of doing business, of course, everything changes when you're working with a man on the street or consumer. It's completely different, and I think we work a lot with the banks to understand that.
Okay, so Albert, it looks like we're definitely going to have to beg, borrow, and steal you for another session. But thank you so much for invigorating us. And we have our own little surprise for you. And that is in the form of our magnificent letter from 3 Stickmen. And I have put her website in the chat so that you guys can see. My favorite thing and the way to describe letter is actually using some of her own language. And that is that letter makes thinking come alive. And I think that's her tagline for her business. And there's no other way to describe it. So she has graphicized what you've spoken about. And at the end, she will have a full graphic and she will go through it now with us.
Thank you, Dr. Kuhn. So what I heard said was business development is around solving clients' problems. When you started the business in 2008, I got the sense that there was a lot of positive thinking around what could possibly go wrong. And sometimes that's what we need when we need to start a new business. Trusted adventurers, you grew out of Africa. What really stood out for me is don't despair if you're not growing fast enough. Focus on, don't despise those small beginnings. Focus on trust. Find the right partners that can open doors, and partners that are willing to invest. At the same time, keep those home fires burning. Don't forget about the customers that started you off on this business. Look after your existing customers. You spoke about the UK issue. Having people to cross-sell and upsell was a problem, especially when COVID hit, and that's a very important learning. In terms of your growth strategy, you moved from organic to strategic, but when you need to go and grow and build into a market, you really need to have the planning because it's expensive to do that. The conversation around the local partnership is absolutely critical. Find the right partner, dance before you date, know what your values are and know what those non-negotiables are at the same time. We spoke about what's happening in Africa, getting fixed income products, for example, bonds, mobile money, cloud technology is important, and then be able to adjust your business model to support your unique value proposition. And then Prof. Klopper spoke about the economies of scale within the cloud banking business and a platform as a service. So that is the visual summary for the last 45 minutes. Really interesting. Dr. Coonan, back over to you.
Thank you so much.
That is awesome. I love that. Thank you.
Cool. So, Albert, if you don't mind looking at the questions, you've got a couple here, and everybody, including myself, is loving the phrase dance before we date. At Da Vinci, we speak about marriage and what you have to do before you climb into anything with anyone. So we're very excited to have a new phrase, dance before we date, which we will give you credit for because we are an academic institution. So thank you very much for that. We love that.